Hey folks, John Cantera, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter, and welcome to another episode of the Tic Toc Diner. We got an interesting guest today, Eastern European compliance specialist. I know some of you probably scratching your head at that point, but it's going to be something very entertaining and educational for you. So please stay tuned. But before we get started with that, we do have a task force minute to cover.
For the Freight Fraud Task Force, the Lounge Media Group presents the Task Force Minute, hosted by the Double Broker Bounty Hunter, John Cantera.
Well, since we have moved the show to Tuesdays, I'm very happy because we get to go over the diesel numbers because with everything going on over in over in Iran and whatnot, we know that diesel has been a huge concern across the industry. Good news on today's numbers that were published by the Department of Energy. The Department of Energy says that the U.S. average price of diesel has gone down 9.1 cents to $5.25 and 7/10 of a cent. So that is the update on diesel, which is kind of interesting, especially since we're still in a period of unrestricted warfare over in the Middle East. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. But that is today's Task Force Minute.
This has been another Task Force Minute. Be sure to like and subscribe on all of our social media. And whatever you do, don't let scammers take you for a ride.
I also want to take a minute to go ahead and plug for my new show, Do You Even Freight, co-hosted by myself, Shimmy Munson, and Kevin also is hanging out with us, Kevin Bullock. And we are live on that show Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. That's 6 a.m. Pacific. So be sure to check that out, and that is on Kiss This Media. So be sure to check that out. Our premiere show was yesterday, and dang, it went pretty damn well. So it should be pretty interesting. So be sure to stick around and check that out. With that being said, let's go ahead and get on with our regular show, shall we? Now, if I can ever just get the intro to play.
For the Freight Fraud Task Force, the Lounge Media Group presents the Tic Toc Diner podcast, serving up freight fraud with a side of prevention. Here is your host, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter, John Cantera.
So we got the grill all fired up. We have Travis Ryzhenko out of Royal Compliance here to talk about compliance today. And if you folks have caught the show at the very beginning, you heard that he is Eastern European, and we all in the fraud space have our own preconceptions about Eastern Europeans. So it's going to be interesting to get his perspective on how things have been progressing with fraud. We'll talk about that in the second half of the hour. But what I really want to hear about, Travis, first off, welcome. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Hey, John. Thanks for having me.
What I really want to talk about is you. I want to talk about how you got into the compliance business, how Royal Compliance came to be, and what brought you into this. So tell us your story.
Yeah, basically the story is simple. So long story short, I just got into the trucking industry and I worked for a very interesting company as a safety manager. So there was no safety at all or something, and they did a kind of interesting business. So as soon as I figured out that it's impossible to continue like this, so I just created a Royal Compliance. I think that a compliance specialist has to create and implement systems, not just to break them.
Well, that's a dang good theory. Now, do you cater to carriers or brokers? Okay, now when we were talking backstage, you said here. Does that mean that you are actually in Ukraine?
No, I travel to Ukraine, I travel to United States, but basically I work in Chicago. So yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Okay. That's got to be one hell of a commute. How often do you go back to Ukraine?
Like from time to time, I try to visit my parents. Like the situation is kind of complicated here, so yeah.
I completely understand that. Completely understand that. So let's talk a little bit about Montgomery. Most of the industry is very concerned about how brokerages need to respond to the changes that the Montgomery decision in the Supreme Court have played out. We are only a few months out from the decision, and frankly, the industry is still reeling from it. We've only seen one judgment from the state of Texas come out yet, among all 50 states dealing with these kinds of issues, and it was, well, for lack of a better term, heavy-handed.
Yeah.
As much as I'm not a fan of the three-letter brokerages out there, $604 million judgment to me sounds a little hair excessive, because I don't know of any brokerage that carries that much liability coverage. And even for a big brokerage like C.H. Robinson, how many of these judgments could you possibly survive and be able to continue to pay out? That seems absolutely insane for the entire industry. So, what changed for you in Montgomery? Where was your focus before, and what did it shift to after the decision?
Uh, my opinion is not that straightforward. Like I'm kind of like I'm not like sarcastic about this one because the brokers, let's be honest, those guys not didn't care a lot about the safety. And after the Montgomery, like it comes to everyone's safety first and all this stuff. As soon as like they can be liable for choosing a bad carrier. So yeah, and from the second part, a lot of brokers start to vet carriers better, and I'm happy for that because I've read the thoughts from Dale Prax, I guess. Yeah, I think that was Dale Prax, and I agree with this one. I think the FMCSA should like develop the checklist because we have like 22K brokers all over the United States, and if everyone's gonna vet carrier like independently, we would have a lot of thoughts how good carrier like look like. So we have to come up to one conclusion and one checklist. So I think that we have to have a system how to vet the carrier. And as for now, it's kind of chaotic. So yeah.
That brings up a very interesting debate, because there are a lot of people who are trying to exactly come up with that situation. I've got a good friend of mine in the insurance industry is trying to put together a team of brokers and consultants together to try to set a baseline standard. Um, but setting a baseline standard is very challenging, especially when we're talking about different types of cargo that exist, different motor carrier pools that exist. And I'll be perfectly honest, I was oblivious to that fact until very recently. I went from being a contract dispatcher where I basically dealt with general freight, and now I work for a freight broker who handles exclusively automobiles. And the automobile side was so different in what it is that we're looking for when it comes to somebody and safety concerns and whatnot, because the carrier pool for handling automobiles is so much smaller. It's unbelievably small, and yet there's still millions of vehicles that are shipped across the country every day, and they have to keep moving. So there has to be a fine line to walk to where we're not boxing out motor carriers who shouldn't be boxed out, and yet maintain a defensible and recordable type of vetting process to make sure that things go by. What is your recommendation to your clients if a motor carrier trying to sign on with them has a conditional safety rating?
Uh, Basically, the information from Safer is not that complete. So I would advise to get a good like software. It doesn't matter, it's like CAB or broker snapshot, alpha loops or something, and you have to judge by the data that you see. Because let's say like the latest tools, alpha loops, I've put a post today on my profile, and it even parsed the internet and the Facebook groups. and it's showing if the MC was being sold at least once. So that's very useful thing. It shows the connection. So you have to judge by the connections, like there is any shared vehicles, trailers, and all that stuff. Not only by the SMS or CSA score or something like this, like by every broker is just like looking at this a safer profile and sees, oh, this guy's has out of service like 30% and national average 22, so it's like bad carrier. No, it doesn't work like this. It can be bad vehicles, like in terrible conditions, but yeah, you have to check the full picture before you make the conclusion.
I completely agree with that. Now, as much as everyone wants a set standard to go by so that it's quick to evaluate a transporter as much as possible, I mean, let's face it, prior to Montgomery, it typically took 15 minutes or less to onboard a new transporter off of a load board. It's very simple. It's very fast. In fact, I remember being at Matt's in 2025, and we had a race between a couple of us dispatchers to see who could get through an onboarding process on My Carrier portal faster. I got it done in 20 seconds. Okay, so I mean, it takes no time to onboard people prior to Montgomery. It's changing now. It's evolving. It's evolving to something that is far more calculated. Yet, because of the Montgomery decision, we have to make sure that everything that we do is measured, documented, etc. Now, when we're looking at these individual carriers and we're making individual evaluations, those individual evaluations have to be documented now. So that causes more work. So is your recommendation, take a deeper look, look at the whole picture. Don't just look at, conditional versus unsatisfactory and satisfactory. As much as I agree with you, it does mean that you have to take time and patience in trying to develop a proper process to handle it. Let me illustrate for a moment. I was asked to evaluate, and it wasn't for my current employers, for somebody else. I was asked to evaluate a specific transporter, motor carrier, and that motor carrier had a conditional safety rating. So I dug in a little bit. And when I dug in a little bit, I found out that the conditional safety rating was 15 years ago. 15 years. So then I go through and I look at their inspection history after. And their inspection history after has been almost pristine. Certainly over the last 2 years, they had like 2 inspections over the last 2 years and 0 findings. So everyone was ready to write this guy off. And I'm like, wait a minute, no, look, this happened 15 years ago. Clearly he has cleaned up his act because he's passing inspections with no problem. Okay, I would say this is a guy you can hire. I think that is why the folks at FMCSA sit there and say, okay, yeah, we've got rating systems out there, and 6% of the motor carriers actually have a rating. I know, only 6%. Blows your mind. 6% have a safety rating, but don't trust that safety rating when you're doing an evaluation. I believe that is the reason why. It's because these evaluations could be as much as 20 years old, and therefore they're not reliable. I'm assuming that's why SMS has only focused on the last 2 years of inspection data instead of an entire authority history. But I'm really not sure. Where do you land on that? What do you tell your clients when they're in situations like that?
Yeah, it's basically similar. And I was wondering when we found that detail from the FMCSA, the guy's basically saying we have a rating, but don't rely on this one. So make your own judgment. So that was kind of interesting for me. And yeah, you have to do your due diligence and you have to check the carrier. I'm working with the hotshot carrier as of now, and I've seen these processes, and it's kind of still quick. Like the broker set up their request some documentation and all this stuff, but I don't think that's gonna that's gonna help them that much, they might request you to send some pictures, and I work with the broker company, and those guys received AI generated picture of the truck with their like USDOT number and all that stuff. So they're perfect pixel spoofing those, and you can see just like blurred trees on the background or something like this. So technologies makes it like easier and more difficult at the same time.
So what is a broker supposed to do? Because I agree. I've seen a lot of brokers resort to taking pictures. I've even heard of brokers resorting to FaceTime with the driver so that they're live with it. I had this was absolutely insane to me. I actually had a broker about a year ago ask me to have my driver show his driver's license when he's standing next to the door of his truck so they can see the DOT number on the side, with him smiling and holding up 3 fingers while he's at it. I was like, do you want him to show a copy of today's newspaper while he's at it? I mean, it drives me nuts, the different things that brokers are trying to do to ensure that they are seeing a live image. I understand that that's the goal. What do you recommend to your clients who are looking for something to ensure that they're dealing with a live human being and not an AI generated image?
Yeah, basically, I advise to ask as much questions as you can. Like, you have to check the driver, you have to call him, you have to have a conversation over the phone, because a lot of double brokers or fraudsters, they never pick up the phone. They have a lot of companies, they have a lot of phone numbers, so they are unable to keep on track with everything. So just try to get a contact with them, and just use the tracking apps. So if the driver is like using the tracking app, don't call him like every 5-10 minutes, like where you are, why are you there, why are you stopped, like are you using like the restroom or something, why the truck is there. So if you're using like the tracking app, just trust this one. And yeah, use like the we implemented the air tags, so we're like putting the air tags in some freight to track it. So yeah, I think that you have to track those.
Air tags make for a good solution in a lot of cases. I know of quite a few companies that are out there. We've even had a couple on this show who develop tracking devices, aftermarket tracking devices that they can toss into things. Throw it in the glove box of a car, throw it into the pallet of watermelons or whatever. Just to look, have a secondary tracking source. But that's one of the things I completely agree with you on. If you already have a tracker active on the driver and you can see where he's at, why the hell are you calling him constantly? That drives me insane. Now, having gone from the dispatch world as a contract dispatcher into the brokerage side where I am now, I have seen how brokers are using AI call centers to contact drivers on a periodic basis, and it's pre-programmed. That they're going to get a call at this time of day or every 4 hours or something, a quick check call or something. I get that, and the intent on the brokerage side is well-meaning. However, let's say you're running a couple of partials, okay, in general freight, you're running a couple of partials. You probably have 2 or 3 brokers sitting on that truck. So each one of them is now calling you every 3-4 hours. That means you're getting a call at least every hour along the way. Of course, drivers are going to be frustrated by that, and I can absolutely see that. So I agree with you. If you've got an active tracking on brokers, back off, let them do their job, because every time you call them, you actually add risk. You actually are distracting them from doing their job. I understand certain things. If they're getting close to pickup or something along those lines, you have to pass critical information, appointment data, codes, whatever. That's understandable. But just to do a quick check call, come on, guys. I think we've gotten to the point where we're pushing check calls to the absolute limit. None of us want to deal with stolen freight. And I don't know of a broker out there, save for a couple of agents who haven't gone through the pain of a stolen cargo. Shout out to my former co-host, Jeff Dickinson, because he has been lucky enough that in over 40 years of being in this business, he's never had a load stolen. He's never even had a load double brokered. So, some people in this industry do it right, in my opinion. So, what really interested me, not just your background in dealing with compliance, but with your background being of Eastern European nationality, that we have been dealing with what a lot of the industry believe are Eastern European syndicates for quite some time, dealing with double brokering, dealing with the cargo theft. And I'm not just picking on Eastern Europeans. We know that the Mexican cartels are involved in it. We know that the Pakistani groups are involved in it. North African groups are involved in it, as well as even the New York Mafia is getting into cargo theft. So we know that there are other groups into it, but among my circles, you ask anybody who's committing fraud, the first word out of their mouth are Eastern Europeans. So, since you're from that region, explain to us a little bit about the culture and how this evolved into what it's become today.
Basically, as I mentioned, it's not only the Eastern Europeans, it comes from Middle Asian region as well. It's different countries like the Tudash Express. They're from Uzbekistan, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like the syndicates from there. And I think that's because of the cultural difference. When the European or like American people seeing that the law forbidden them something to do, no one's gonna break the law. But like Eastern Europeans, like the post-USSR, like the countries, it's always risk versus reward. So because of the like these poor countries like Ukraine, maybe Serbia, like Poland, these guys, they always evaluate risk and reward. So if the reward is bigger than the risk, they're gonna do something. Like they cut corners with the insurance, with these shell games and all this stuff. It's not about like I think it's not about the to look cool or something. It's about to make living, I guess. So it depends on the risk. So if it's bigger than the reward, there is no sense to do that. So that's the point, I guess.
Well, I have noticed on many occasions, you mentioned dealing with hot shots.
Yeah.
I've noticed, especially among hotshot carriers over the last 6 months, that I've been seeing what I refer to as ghost fleets, where you have one party applies for a DOT number and then generates hundreds of labels under that DOT number and passes it out to all their friends. And now all their friends are running under different authorities, yet they all put that DOT number on the side of their truck. And then when they get pulled over by DOT for whatever reason, the violation goes under the new DOT number, not under the DOT number that the load's actually being run under. There are many who consider that still a form of double brokering because, the DOT number doesn't match the DOT of who's supposed to be pulling the load, even though the driver may be the correct driver. It could be that the VIN number on the truck it appears on the carrier's policy, but it's got the wrong DOT number displayed on the side of the truck. So there are a lot of different factors that seem to play into what's being done. The reason why I bring this up is because in a lot of those cases, the risk of theft has been minimal. It appears that in a lot of those cases, they're not out there to steal. They're out there to cut corners. They're out there to try to maximize profit and appear legal without getting caught. So I think the best way to describe that is, cutting corners. It's still, by definition, it is still a form of fraud. It is still a major concern for freight brokers out there to make sure that the DOT number matches, that the VIN number of the truck matches, that the driver's name matches, that everything lines up so that if something happens, insurance will pay out. Because if one of those components doesn't line up, the insurance says, well, nope, not our problem. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. And then the broker and subsequently the shipper are completely screwed if an incident takes place. And that's where the brokers seem to have the greatest heartache in dealing with guys like these ghost fleets. Not necessarily the theft part, but the exorbitant amount of risk that gets involved with that. Any options that you can give to brokers on how to deal or how to protect themselves from these types of things?
Yeah, as I mentioned, you just use the software, like the motor software, like showing you the connections between the companies, like the shared VIN numbers between the trailers and trucks. As you bring up the ghost fleets, from my perspective, these guys are dealing it. They're like reselling the insurance. A lot of owner operators on the hot shots, like from Eastern Europe, it doesn't matter. Like they don't need the CDLs to run the pickup trucks with like hauling 1-2 vehicles. They have like bad records with the like improper passing, speeding, or something like this. There is no insurance company that's gonna cover them. Like I know some exclusions, maybe Geico and Progressive. So these insurance companies accept those carriers, and these ghost fleets reselling the insurance spot. So like let's say someone paying you for a spot to be on their insurance company. They're gathering the like crazy inspections under the new DOT, as you mentioned. So they are trying to steal legal to protect their business. So just in case there is an audit or something, they're showing, here is my fleet. I've been operating like a couple of years and it's fine. And like the modus was created for like preventing these things, to track the VIN numbers and all this stuff. And I can tell you the modus, it doesn't work well. It doesn't work at all. So that's the problem. And,
yeah, it doesn't work well. Actually, it doesn't work at all.
It doesn't work at all. I like the problem.
Understatement of the year.
Yeah, but I want to emphasize there is improvements. Why? Because lately these guys were using the loophole when they had the interstate authority. And when there is something happens with the insurance, it's non-renewed, canceled, or something, these guys used to change from interstate to intrastate and save their authority. However, since like I believe month or something, it's impossible to switch from interstate to intrastate without losing an authority. The FMCSA and modus system saying that you have to deactivate your authority, so it won't be possible to HDMC and sell it later as they used to do. So it's like, I think that's the big improvement on the market.
Well, you know, I think it's the first time on this show somebody has actually had something positive to say about modus. So I'm sure any of my friends over at FMCSA, if they're seeing this, they're probably thanking you for that. I will throw another one out there. I agree. Modus is actually fixing some of the regulatory issues that have gone by the wayside. As an example, when a motor carrier fills out their MCS 150, they fill out whatever they want on the form and they send it in, and it is copied verbatim into Safer. No one goes and screens that data to make sure that it was filled out correctly. For example, and only because I'm working in the automotive space am I bringing this up. If you put motor vehicles as a type of cargo that you haul on your MCS 150, yet you also select non-hazmat on your MCS 150, well, you're going to show up as a non-hazmat carrier with automobiles as a cargo type. And that was under Safer. Well, Modus recognizes that automobiles are automatically classified as a Class 9 hazmat. Therefore, if you check that block on your MCS 150, you will automatically be identified as a hazmat carrier. End of story. And I think that is actually a good thing. Now we have close friends to the show, J.R. Elrod being one, who got caught up in that kind of an issue because he handles a lot of machinery, and machinery usually has a motor or something attached to it. And if it's got a motor attached to it, there's oil in it. Therefore, it's automatically a Class 9 hazmat. So he wound up in something like that, despite the fact that he hauls basically structural steel being used to support machinery. So he had marked machinery on his MCS 150. Therefore, he inadvertently got reclassified as a hazmat hauler, and it caused him all kinds of issues when he was trying to get new insurance. Because you look at the main insurance companies that are out there. Geico will not write a hazmat policy. Progressive will write a Class 9 hazmat policy for like auto haulers, but they won't do a Class 1 through 8 hazmat, something that requires a placard for hazmat. So these kinds of things really came to light as Modus finally came online. And again, as frustrating as it is, and I'm sorry, JR, I know you don't want to hear this, it's actually a good thing, because it is properly classifying motor carriers the way they need to be classified based on the cargoes that they're hauling. So I think there has been some good that came out of Modus. The only thing that I cry about with Modus, and I'd love to get your take on this, is when I'm asked to evaluate a motor carrier and Modus says they have an active authority. I go into someplace like My Carrier Portal or Highway, and they say they don't have an active authority.
Yes.
What is the source of truth? Who do you believe? What are you recommending to your clients?
Basically, I'd like to check it on the both portals. I think that's the known issue, because a lot of carriers had tickets with the FMCSA about this one, and the FMCSA is saying like it's active, because due to Modus they suspended the activation of the DOTs for now, until the all issues are resolved. So basically, I think you should go to the old website. You still can use the old Safer snapshot, and as far as I've been dealing with these, it's like still true source. So you can trust the old Safer.
I'm fighting a sneeze. Yeah, I have seen so many different complicated cases. I've actually gotten to the point where if Safer contradicts Modus and L&I contradicts Safer, then I'm scratching my head saying, okay, I don't know which to believe. I just don't know. I've actually gotten to the point where I've actually called FMCSA and say, hey, look, dude, here's a DOT number. I just don't freaking know what to believe these days. And if I can't get a hold of DOT, I have to sit there and say, tell my client, say, look, apologize to them. Say, hey, look, until I can verify what your true status is, I just can't use you. And it's a real shame, because you may know, because you've worked with them for a while, them, their authority is active, that their insurance is still good, everything's still good. They're good. But how does the broker they're signing on with, who doesn't know them, know that they're good? So that causes a lot of problems. And I don't know how many carriers are caught up in this, but I do know from conversations I've had with friends over at FMCSA that they believe they're going to have that fixed fairly soon now. I'm told within a month, but I don't know. I don't know what to believe anymore. But finding that source of truth is, in my mind, the biggest challenge that brokers have today. What do you think is the biggest challenge brokers are experiencing today?
The Modus is the biggest one, I guess, and the identity verification. It's kind of weird, and one of the most biggest problems as of now, that's the cyber crimes. So I think that's the biggest problem for brokers as of now, because double brokering it's like becoming a buzzword, and it's getting like less problematic, like thanks to you guys, like you, John, like the Dale Prax. So you're affecting like really positive on the industry. And but the like the cyber crimes and the identity thefts, that became a plug. So yeah.
I would dare say that double brokering is still just as prevalent as it's been over the last several years, and it's a gateway. It's a gateway to other forms of fraud because even in the impersonation world, which I think is the biggest concern that most brokers have, when motor carriers are being impersonated, why are they being impersonated? What is the goal? The goal has been to double broker a load in their name so that they can either take it one step further and steal the cargo or just steal the freight bill, one or the other. I think double brokering is still just as prevalent. It's just the way that double brokering has evolved has changed. And since there is no legal definition of double brokering or illegal brokerage, in which most people thought that MAP 21 had provided such a thing. No, it didn't actually. Double brokering is just part of the industry standard vernacular. It's not actually a codified term. With that being the case, I think the industry itself, from a legal standpoint, also struggles in trying to come up with proper defenses for it because there's no legal remedy that can be stepped up to try to do things, at least in my opinion. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I want to just say that like we can blame ourselves about this. A lot of carriers like running their business on the regular Gmail post, like mailbox, and it's really easy to compromise. Like my last client got compromised, and they end up with the 2 stolen truckloads. And those guys who compromised, like how it happened, the dispatcher was doing a broker setup and he clicked on the phishing link. So the first thing that I advise to do, just like verify everything that you're clicking on. Like so you have a lot of tools to verify the link, like the first one. Then he got the malware that hijacked his cookie session. So I'm not sure about this one, but I'm advising to work on macOS. It's like still like a myth that it's gotten less malware than Windows, but it's still like I still believe in it. And they like reinstalled the Windows and all that stuff, and still all passwords leaked because they had like great idea to store everything in one Excel spreadsheet. So
Ooh.
yeah, everything. There is no two-factor authentication or something, so everything just leaked. And it's not a small fleet like 5 tracks or something. It was like 55 units, so it's not that small fleet. Yeah, and it was.
I mean, you'd figure when you get to a size of that, once you get past 10 trucks, don't you think it's time to have a proper domain at that point?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I'll be honest. When I was a motor carrier myself, because I also had my own trucking company at one point, when I was first starting out, I started out with my own domain. Because I wanted to be known, I wanted to be professional, and carriers, if you're listening to this, it's not expensive to get your own domain. It really isn't, and it does help to improve security from an IT perspective. Yeah, you had brought up just a couple minutes ago, and it's now escaping, two-factor authentication. There you are,
Yeah.
2FA. Gmail does offer 2FA. Yahoo offers 2FA. Hotmail offers 2FA. The problem is that a very small percentage use it, and using it dramatically improves your strength of security for your email. So if you are still out there using a Gmail account, please, for the love of God, turn on your 2FA. So you mentioned before that in the case of your client, it was the dispatcher who got compromised. Now, when I ran a dispatch service, I had up to 7 different carriers at one time that I was dealing with, and I know if I would get hacked, that means all 7 of them would have been compromised. Are dispatchers the biggest part of the problem? Are they the target for a lot of these attacks, or are they just going for both dispatchers and carriers?
Oh, that goes for dispatchers and carriers. The problem is they're trying to save on the Google account. So this company was running their business. There was like 15 or 20 people using one account. So it was like mess. They're saving on pennies, but they're losing dollars, So that's what happened. And then like how they find out that their loads got stolen, they just got claims from the insurance. And that's it. And they even didn't know what to do. So a lot of people think that they have to go to local police department and write like report, but the local police department don't know what to do with the cyber crimes right now. I think that you have to report to IC3 and on ICB. Like a lot of people think that National Insurance Crime Bureau is just like the commercial organization that looking for stolen vehicles. No, it's not. So basically, you just have to report them that you're like victim, not a part of this scheme. Because you have to notify the FMCSA, you have to notify like the all load boards that you are working with, because this company end up banned on like on DAT, and they got banned on the My Carrier portal, and the brokers don't want to work with them. However, they're like victims, so their all operations are frozen as of now because of an ongoing investigation. And because of their been working with the just regular Gmail, those guys that compromised them deleted everything. So if you had the admin panel, you could try to restore those, like for evidences for FBI or something. But at this case, that's gonna like last for a couple of years, I guess.
I've seen too many carriers get destroyed
Yeah.
by being victims,
Mhm.
and then being blamed for being victims through different reputation management systems. It's no secret that I'm not a fan of the reports by Highway or My Carrier Portal, or Carrier 411, Carrier Sure, any of those that produce unproven reports for brokers to view and evaluate. Those drive me insane. In fact, it's one of the hills in this industry I'm willing to die on, that these need to go away from the industry. They are killing the industry. I would love myself if FMCSA would step up and develop some kind of a system where you can still have a Carrier 411, but it's run by the government. And the government has validated the information to sit there and say, okay, this is a valid thing. Oh, but by the way, you know what? Since it's the government that's validating it, and they're validating that the carrier or the broker is doing something shady or illegal, not only do they report that they're doing it and show that they're doing it, they can shut them down. We can fully shut them down. They can take the authority away. I would love for the government to take that over. And at least in that case, there's going to be a semblance of due process. There's no due process on platforms like Carrier 411. So then carriers have to struggle to clear their name just because they were a victim. That drives me utterly insane. Okay, do you want me to tell you what I really feel now? I mean, I know this. It's a passion for me. That whole thing, it drives me completely nuts. I'm sorry. You were saying.
No, I mean, like from one side, I can find like like what attorney would like tell in a court. They will say that's your negligence, like, and that's it. So we can blame carriers as well for doing their operations so poorly. So yeah, from
True.
one side, yeah, there is like two sides involved in this one.
I won't say that some of the reports are not earned.
Yeah.
They definitely, in many cases, they definitely deserve it. It's just the power that these reports have.
Yes.
Like if you get a freight guard on Carrier 411, and it could be for something as simple as you were 5 minutes late for a pickup, you can get a freight guard for that.
Yeah.
And just because you have a freight guard, just because a freight guard exists, you lose access to half the market of brokers out there. They won't even touch
you. Yeah.
you know, that is what really bothers me about the power of the freight guard. Not that it exists, because it was a good idea when it first came about. It's just over the years, it's been bastardized from being a tool to provide information into being a weapon against carriers. That's where I have the heartache.
Yeah, I even know the cases when the opponents try to shut down the business reporting to freight guards, like intentionally. So yeah.
Do you do any work on that? Do you try to defend carriers who get freight guards? Is that one of the things that you do?
Yeah, it's one of the things. Like, it's like the work with the Amazon can block you as well for like mistakenly. Like the last client got blocked because he assigned additional driver. So that was basically owner operator, and he had like one unit, one driver, and he assigned another driver. So that's gonna be like two drivers. And Amazon blocked his like source of earnings. Why? Because of non-compliance or something. We had an investigation, correction plans, and all this stuff. It just ended up that this guy that was assigned like the second driver, he was blocked in Amazon like a year ago or something, but it's impossible to check. The lack of verification, it makes a hell there. So it's kind of crazy.
Well, in Amazon's defense, okay, because let's face it, Amazon's got more attorneys than employees. Okay,
yes.
they have so many damn attorneys. In Amazon's defense, and frankly, any freight broker, you have the choice to say yes or no to anybody for any reason, legally speaking.
Yeah.
Okay, is it right? Who knows? I've known, I don't know how many motor carriers who sat there and say, I've got a valid authority, you're required to work with me. No, dude, as much as we want to say that, no, you can't. If they don't want to work with you, they don't want to work with you. But I didn't do anything wrong. No, you called them, forgive me, a shithead or whatever. So of course they DNU you because you were disrespectful. Well, he disrespected me. I was like, this is business. Okay, be a businessman. Take control of your business. Be professional at all times. In the face of utter stupidity, you still must maintain your professionalism.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can still get labeled as the bad guy when you lash out to defend yourself. And that's something that I think a lot of motor carriers don't often understand. When emotion starts getting involved in business, things go sideways in a hurry.
Yeah.
So what is the biggest concern right now among motor carriers that you work with?
That's a great question. I think a lot of carriers like concerned about the technologies that coming into the industry, like the Aurora case. So they think that that's gonna be a substitute for them. And but my thoughts about this one, I told you about that. So just imagine if the 10 trucks running on the lane and someone's got like compromised, what's gonna happen? Just like gonna end up with the, let's see, you see on the tracking app the autonomous vehicle just heading on the road, and then it just disappeared, like 1-2 trucks. So the truck's gonna be gone with the cargo, I guess. So it's kind of weird in this one. So that's the biggest concern between carriers and like the motos. We discussed this, so the guys are struggling with this one. And about the data queues, a lot of people, like a lot of carriers, think that's the magic wand for some reason, just to erase their like violations that's been issued to them. So they're looking to the ways to avoid this, and they work with the data queue. So yeah, like the motos, data queue, and the autonomous vehicles are concerned about this one, and the insurance prices. Yeah, they don't like the insurance prices.
No, who the hell does? I think insurance prices have been skyrocketing. Now, granted, motor carriers are dealing with the largest increases in insurance prices, but even for personal insurance is going crazy. So I mean, it's just been a crazy industry, and a lot of it again cycles back to the fraud and theft
Mhm.
that takes place because everyone's trying to recover the funds that are lost. I mean, I I sat down with a couple of economists recently, and
Mhm.
we tried to calculate how much of what you spend today at Walmart is directly related to cargo theft and freight fraud. And we came up with between 15 and 20%. And that's how much of a markup is going on at places like Walmart and other big box retailers to help them recoup what they have lost in stolen freight. So, you know, the problem is that the general public doesn't see that. The general public, all they see is inflation, and then they turn around and they blame, the Republicans or the Democrats or whoever the hell's in power for inflation that's going on. And it's a much more nuanced issue. And I don't think that the general population understands how much of an impact freight fraud has on the overall economy. We all know that if trucking, for whatever reason, uh, stops, like if every truck just parked
Mhm.
for a couple of days, you not only cripple the U.S. economy, but you would almost disrupt American society in ways most people won't dare to imagine. What is it? 3 days, and all the grocery stores would be empty. 4 days, and hospitals will be out of supplies. The economy would entirely collapse. So people don't understand how important the transportation industry is uh, to overall society. So when we sit down and we calculate these kinds of figures as to how much people are paying because of freight fraud, I think if the general public understood that, there'd be one hell of a massive outcry about it.
Like the general public, like they don't even know about the freight fraud or something. So that's the problem. Like the casual person that goes to the Walmart, they don't know like what they are paying for. And regarding the insurance, the modern coverage is like 250 for the cargo or something. It won't even cover like the modern expenses. That's the problem. So yeah, I thought that that's gonna be increased in the nearest future, I guess, like maybe to 500K, maybe 1 mil, but a lot of brokers request for 500K coverage for a cargo right now.
That's a damn good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Because when you sit there and you look at the federal minimums required for insurance, which is the 750,000 liability, 75,000 cargo. Prior to Montgomery, the industry standard was 1 million and 100,000, respectively. So if you look at where those numbers originated from, that came out of the Motor Carrier Act of 1980. If you adjust that for inflation, you're looking at liability going from 750,000 to upwards of $5 million liability.
Mhm.
And subsequently, as you pointed out, for the cargo, you're looking at $500,000 in cargo coverage, and that's just adjusting for inflation. You are absolutely right. A shockwave is going to be coming because at some point, as these brokers are refining their processes, you are going to see the minimum cargo requirements going up significantly. And whether or not motor carriers can survive that insurance increase, frankly, is questionable.
Yeah, that's gonna hit massively, and I think they're still gonna like cut the corners with the insurance with those ghost fleets. It's not that popular in eight class rigs, but with the hot shot, yeah, like the that's gonna hit them like massively. So they're gonna cut it even more. So yeah.
So you think the biggest, so most carriers that are at risk, or at least the types of carriers that brokers are at most risk dealing with, are the non-CDL platforms, the hot shots, the box trucks, the sprinter vans.
Yeah, I think so. You don't have to be qualified driver or something. I've seen on my practice the such companies like accept the driver, and he had 6 accidents in 2 years. Like, and he was hauling the freight. So like the last thing that he dealt with, he got into an accident. He damaged Bentley for 140K. So like yeah, and no, there is no insurance that will cover him again, as I mentioned. But yeah, those guys gonna work under the ghost fleets, and I think there should be more strict regulation about this, or at least it should be more clear, and any tools to deal with these guys. So yeah.
This has been a great conversation. It's been really good to get your perspective, both culturally and professionally, as to how things have been shaping up across the industry, dealing both with fraud, safety, and compliance. It is definitely a unexplored landscape at this point. Montgomery threw a massive wrench into the works. We are going to be figuring this out for at least the next 2 years to come. So something tells me both you and I are going to be gainfully employed for quite some time as we try to figure all of this out. I would love, as you said before, for FMCSA to lay out a standard. I'm not sure that it's possible to do that, but I would love to see it. We need some kind of guidance other than here's the information, but don't rely on it. I don't know what people are supposed to do with that. And it's very difficult to try to suss through what is right and what is wrong. And I think that's something that the industry is going to struggle with for quite some time. Travis, again, thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us as we come up towards the top of the hour. Let us know how can we get a hold of you if we want to reach out.
Basically, I'm not that social person, but you can find me on LinkedIn. So I've been like the announced and my page there. So you can go there and just drop me a DM if you need anything, help. So yeah.
Okay. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Yeah. Watch your cybersecurity if you don't want to get some damage to your business.
Yeah, I got to tell you, you mentioned earlier today IC3. That's with regard to the cybersecurity division of the FBI. If you wind up in a situation where you have been compromised or you're a freight broker dealing with stolen freight, file a report with them, please, but provide as much detail as you possibly can. Otherwise, it's not that they're ignoring you. If you file reports and they never call you, they're not ignoring you. They're compiling data. And once they compile enough data that they can put together a web of what's happening, that's when they're going to reach out and start asking more questions because they're narrowing something down. But keep filing those reports. Filing those reports are critical for us being able to try to deal with the situation. So thank you for bringing that up. And again, thank you for spending time with us. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thanks for spending time with us on another Tuesday. I hope that you had a good one. Next week, I am going to have CDL Shorty back on the show, as well as Michelle Hutchison. And we're going to have a wide range of discussions dealing with training and fraud. So be sure to check that out next week at noon Eastern time. With that being said, your check is sitting on the table. Please make sure you tip out your server, and we will see you next time here at the Tic Toc Diner.
Please be sure to like and subscribe to all of our social media, and be sure to visit our merch store at vigilanttransport.com. Until next time, don't let scammers take you for a ride.